Now, nothing came from that investigation. I didn't get in trouble. I didn't get fired. But did those tweets mess up my chances for early promotion? Absolutely. So he was successful in his attempts. One thing that I did find out from my firm from this investigation process was that they had reason to believe that the person behind this account was a whistleblower. So they were a former employee and they were airing out their grievances while using me to do so. Now, January of 2023, I have a new challenge to focus on because the Black people at my firm have been getting underpaid now for 2 years. And we had clocked it the year before, but we were told that it was going to be corrected and we'd be made whole this current year, which was at the time 2023. That was not the case. In fact, it was even worse in 2023. Now, that kind of stuff doesn't sit well with me. And of course, I'm telling my soon-to-be ex-husband about what's going on because he is a friend of mine and he's very supportive. He's like, trying to make sure that he could be there for me and just like support me in this time that I'm taking on this challenge of like pushing back against my firm. So one of the things that I do is I write a letter to the head of HR. Because of that letter that I wrote to the head of HR, an investigation was launched and they were like, yep, we messed up. People's pay needed to be revamped. Now, even though they fixed the pay of all of the Black employees that were hired through this program, it still wasn't the correct amount. We were still being significantly underpaid compared to our white peers for doing the same work. I was not happy with that solution because I knew that that was just them slapping a band-aid on a situation that literally needed surgery. So, I lawyered up. One thing you're never going to do is you're never going to play with my money, especially.
He is literally making her life miserable. Like, how can you say that you love this person and you want to be with that person, want to marry that person, and make their life a living hell? It just doesn't make any sense. And that is the case with people who are narcissists. They only think of how the situation can benefit them, not about how it is perceived by the other person. I'm sure in his head he thinks that this is a great idea and she's just gonna come running back and be like, oh, you didn't have to do that, whatever. But you have to understand, guys, that this is what they do. And you need to be very observant and very careful of these type of people.
I've now taken on this legal battle with a major Wall Street institution. I am literally drained and exhausted. I'm fighting for myself and others who are not even willing to fight for themselves, right? Because there are a lot of people on Wall Street and in corporate America who are just not willing to stand up for themselves. But here I am putting in the good fight. Now, at the time, I did go to spend some time in LA because I'm just actually mentally drained. And it was good because I think it was like a different type of isolation. But at the same time, my soon-to-be ex-husband used this opportunity to really weasel himself back in as a source of support for me. He would fly in from Florida, spend some weekends in LA with me. He was really just like this great source of support for me and convinced me to get back together with him. And I was like, honestly, like he gets it. He understands what I'm going through, and at this point, this man knows me well. He knows my family dynamics. He knows my triggers. He knows a lot about me, right? So he knows exactly what to say to get back in my life. Now he starts talking about getting a ring and getting engaged somewhere around, I want to say May or June of 2023. Truth be told, I should not have gotten engaged in the mental state that I was in 2023 because I was so drained by this battle. I was so exhausted for having to fight for what was clearly like standard. Like the fact that I'm fighting for equal pay for Black people in 2023, it was just mind-boggling. You know what I'm saying? And just the back and forth with the legal situation, I was exhausted. But of course, the whole talks of engagement and all of that, and like just like my soon-to-be ex-husband being there for me and just being this great source of support, it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like he's so sweet. Again, I'm kind of in a daze in 2023. I'm dealing with a whole legal battle, but I'm still excited because it feels like, oh my gosh, at the end of the day, this is the light at the end of the tunnel. We get engaged in August. Now, once you get engaged, everybody's asking you, when is the wedding? When is the wedding? When is the wedding? So you have all this external pressure and my family, my friends, everything. I'm a type A person, right? I didn't end up getting a planner for my wedding. I ended up planning it myself. So I'm completely caught up with planning my wedding. I'm still dealing with this legal battle. I have now moved to Florida. I still have my place in New York, but now I'm in Florida. Thankfully now I know like 2 couples in Florida. So I do have a couple people there, but I'm now in a different state. I'm still dealing with this legal battle. I'm here planning a wedding. I'm also transitioning careers, right? Because when you go up against a firm in Wall Street, like best of luck if you think you're gonna have a career in Wall Street after that. But also that experience left such a bitter taste in my mouth that I decided that I didn't want to work on Wall Street anymore. So I'd made my mind up that I was done with the industry. Now this legal battle, I'm not done with it until roughly February of 2024. And I also want to provide the context that I wanted to take this to litigation because the evidence was all there, the wrongdoing was there, and it would have been a case that would have really changed a lot of things for the industry and people underpaying Black people in the industry. But my soon-to-be ex-husband was a big advocate for me settling because he was like, you know what? I've seen how drained you've been. I've seen how exhausted you've been. and, you know, just prioritize your peace and move forward. In retrospect, right, he just wanted me to, you know, get paid quickly and just move along. That's what he wanted me to do. If it were up to me, I probably would have litigated, and my lawyers were ready and willing to litigate. Now, one thing to note is even before we got engaged, this is before premarital counseling, we had gone through this book where we were just kind of like figuring out like, what do we want out of life? Does this all make sense? Does it make sense to get married? For example, one of those questions in that book was like, okay, how many kids do you want? And I remember saying, okay, like I want 2 to 3 kids. And he was like, oh yeah, I want 2 to 3 kids. Essentially what he did the entire time, I did not know this, but again, he's a great actor. He deserves an Oscar. He was mirroring me the entire time. He knew my family dynamics. He knew what I liked. He knew what I didn't like. And he was presenting himself to be the type of person that I would want in a husband. Another thing to note is 2023, he suddenly gets very bulked up, very muscular. Now, he was always athletic, but he was always on the slimmer side, right? 2023, he has bulked up, right? I'm like, okay, you know, what happened to you? He just has this newfound passion for the gym, I guess. I mean, he always went to the gym, but like he was never doing all of that, like weight, and like he wasn't eating that amount of protein and all that. Now, after we got married, that is when the mask started to slip. So he would say things like, I have to go to the gym and have all this protein and eat all this food to look good for you and to be bulked up for you. And I'm like, look good for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to look like that, like you're the one who decided to bulk up like this, right? Like you decided to do this to yourself. I never told you to do that. So you always want to pay attention when it comes to dating someone. If you find that they're like transforming themselves to be someone to match you a little bit too much, right? And it's not organic, it's not natural, it's not something that they ever were. That is something that you need to pay attention to. At the time, I just thought, you know what? He bulked up. He has this newfound passion for the gym. It is what it is. I didn't know that someone with narcissistic personality disorder, they are going to mirror their target like crazy. And he had to bulk up in such a way and transform himself because he had to be seen as worthy of being my partner. But once we got married, he's complaining about the way that he has to eat all this protein and eat all this food for me. And I'm like, well, if you don't want to do something, you shouldn't do it. Like, it's not a requirement to be with me. You know, like this is something that you put on yourself. He has really deep abandonment wounds, right? And this is something I always encouraged him to work on. And it really showed itself in one particular instance. This was in July of 2024. He was going to get some food at this particular place that I don't like eating at. He was asking me what I wanted to eat. I was like, look, you know, I don't even eat from there. I don't know why you're asking me what I want. And I told him like, look, I'm going to go home and I'm going to order something. And at the time we were out at this particular plaza and it was going to be easier for him to just drive there, get what he wanted, drive back home. And for me, it just would have been easier for me to just Uber home and order what I wanted. So I told him, look, I'm just gonna go home and Uber what I want. So I got out of the car and I was about to call my Uber on my phone. I kid you not, this man drives in front of me, wrestles my phone out of my hand with such force, so angrily that like I'm pushed, and he drives off in the parking lot. He makes a loop in the parking lot, actually, like a lunatic in anger. And at the time, I only had my personal phone. I didn't have my work phone. So I'm in the parking lot, no phone. He drives back around and I'm like, yo, what is wrong with you?